see my comment?
Yes, yep, you're up. Where's that one gone? Okay.
There you are.
Right, we're up and we're at it. I'm back near the fireplace again. We're still cool. We were cold the last couple of days, and I think we're going to have a bit of coolness around. Being cold, even though we've had cloud cover. Last night there was still a bit rainy, and we had cloud cover, and we're still a bit cold. So hence the woolly jumper and being near to the hot stove. Which sort of leads me into what I was doing today, was cutting firewood, not necessarily for this stove, some was, but the residents on the other side of the property, they heat their water with, it's not a rocket stove, it's an old beer keg that's got copper coils in it, and it's not super efficient because a lot of heat goes up the chimney, doesn't get used properly. I obviously intend to make a proper rocket stove, but anyhow, they run out of firewood. So what firewood I use for them is all the rubbishy light material, because they need a hot, fast fire. I'm just going to turn down this glare over here. That might help a little bit. Might not. It's probably above me. They need a hot, fast fire to get the heat into the coils, and the coils thermocycle the water up and into the tank. So the cold comes down the other pipe and goes up the hot pipe. And it needs a hot, fast fire. This fire right behind me here, I can probably give a little bit more of it's a Rayburn fire there. It behaves, it functions differently, and so we use heavier wood for this one. So I keep the heavy wood. We want the heat to radiate out of the stove and warm the building. So, and we've even, you see, we've got the door of the oven open to allow the heat to come into the room. The problem we have, this probably won't work, but we don't have insulation on the ceiling. The light's going to hit that, and a lot of heat's just going out the top. So inefficiency, which we'll rectify in due course. So where I'm leading to is resources. You need to ration your resources. An ongoing point that we need to keep emphasizing with people that visit the property and spend time on the property, and is rationing your resources. We need to move away from you just get something more from the shop or wherever you go and buy from somewhere else. We need to remove that policy. We have our resources on site. You try, or very close in your village area. Share resources. Someone has an abundant certain resource, you can share those resources. We need to move towards that if we're going to have resilience. So at the moment, worldwide, there's awareness of fuel availability becoming a problem. And so if immediately, in Australia, that could happen immediately. We have no diesel. And when I say immediately, it would take probably 5 or 7 days, maybe a week, and then we're right out of oil. Sri Lanka is going through this at the moment. Sri Lanka government buildings government offices in Sri Lanka, the last I heard, were closed for 2 days of the week to conserve fuel of them going to work, the government employees, because they have a fuel crisis. That could happen in Australia in very, very quickly. So if that occurs, people are going to get hungry and cold or really quick because they don't have their resources available to them. So for our firewood, I'm always putting aside scrap wood, that offcuts from building and things like that, so that and stockpiling it, so that then I cut it up for for whatever needs it has. So I have two wood sheds. It's one wood shed, but it's got 2 partitions, and that is for this fire behind me. It needs that solid wood, and the model that I need to, I've got a stove that I have to make 1 out of 2, and that model has to have very dry wood. Any sap that comes from the wood when it's burning will block it up really quickly. So you'd have to service it more often, and that's inconvenient. This one's pretty good, but I try and use as dry wood as I can. So I try and have the two bins. One's try and have them full at the sort of the start of the season, but it's a preferably 2-year old dry wood. That's what you really need for these models. So you have to have that ahead of yourself. And then all the rubbishy wood that happens around the property, just an old gate post or something, wooden gate falls apart, things like that. I always stockpile that and then dock it up like I did today. I was docking that up just with the drop saw. I did some with a chainsaw till I broke the chain, but then I had to use a dock saw anyhow because some of the wood's got nails in it, and you can't use the chainsaw on that. And and I spent probably 2 hours doing that, maybe a bit more, but let's say 2 hours um, cutting that wood, and that should give 3 weeks at least for the residents in their space to have hot water for showers and doing their dishes. So you always need that. I was a bit concerned that I didn't have a stockpile ahead of myself, but I found I did have some there. And only problem is I've left it in the weather and it's gotten quite wet because they had a very wet season. So it'll take a day or two for it to dry enough that they can use that. Um, and now my other concern is that I've nearly got one bay of my good wood for this fire. Nearly empty. Well, it's not really empty. I'll get another probably 3 or 4 weeks yet before it's empty. But I do have a stockpile of wood in two places to go back into that to fill that back up again. The other one's near full, ready for me to start working on that one, start consuming that one, and then get the other one full. So I am a little bit behind. I actually need to make a third one and have three because it's taking me a bit over a year or a year and a half to empty one side. But when I get two stoves going, that's going to happen quicker. So what is my source of wood in the future? So I know I've got a tree over here that's been hit by lightning. That's dead. Another one beside it's not looking too good. So then I'll have to drop them soon and get them cut so that they can dry out in time for. I could stockpile it in the paddock for a little while and then put it into the shed. I don't know how dry it's going to be because it struck by lightning quite a while ago, maybe a year ago. So it already might be drying. But the what I've understood with wood, it takes a year for every inch. So if that's 25 mil. It takes a year to dry. So if you got a 10-inch log, it's going to take 5 years for it to dry, at least. 5 and 5. Yeah. So it's going to at least, and if not longer. So if you dock it, then you're coming in from the ends. So you cut it into your billet, then it's going to come in from the ends and the sides and dry out quicker, and probably split and dry it even quicker. So you need to have your resources ahead of yourself, and very local. We don't have enough rocket stove fuel here, which is eucalyptus sticks is preferred. So I've got a local connection, and he's got a eucalyptus forest, a timber lot forest for. Well, I'm not sure what he's going to use it for. He's only newly purchased for him, but it's 30 years old timber. But it's got a lot of windfall sticks in there, and we go and every when we run out, we drive over there with the trailer. It's a 10-minute drive, and we get those sticks. Okay, so I haven't had a look at this chat here. So, good day, Finn. Hey, mate, how you doing? Good morning, good evening. Steve, hi everyone from Garden Whedon. Yeah. Yeah, so just commenting on the diesel there, I mean that's correct. It can happen really quickly, and this is what I've been preparing for many years. We maybe I'll just quickly go through the chat. Yeah, pays to be prepared. Thankfully, has been part of our lifestyle probably 7 or so years. So we've been here for 17 years, and that's been our whole preparation. I'm not quite ready. I don't have the insulation in the roof, but we can function. That's okay. It's fine. We got out of the rain, and that's all that really matters, and the sun. Back to basics. So yeah, thanks, guys, for your comment. So what I've noticed, so we've had. Okay, so we have quite a few supplies for ourselves. So we got a freezer with meat in it from a cow of ours, goats in there. So that's our meat supply. Weekly, we've got a little rubbish bin here, and we half fill that weekly. I guess we got two houses, so some of our meals are in the other house, and so some goes into there. So let's say I fill that once a week of to go to landfill stuff. And with the other people on the property, they're living more on packaged food, canned food. We don't do very much canned food, and we don't do very much packaged food, which obviously means it's coming with fossil fuels to get onto the shop shelves for us to buy that. And it's a bit of a luxury, really, for us to have. We don't need to. We got food here that we can consume. We don't need to. So it's a bit of a luxury to have those items. So yes, it will be missing some of those luxuries, but yeah, we are at that point. But I'm noticing with the other people on the property, our wheelie bin now is 3/4 full, which is not too bad considering there's, let's say, one, two, you could say three families on the property, and the wheelie bin's probably about half to 2/3 full each week, um, of plastic, and so it's landfill materials, so plastics, and then the resource bin is filling up probably in about 6 weeks. We get the wheelie bin, the resource wheelie bin filled up. So it's not too bad compared to some people, um, but with big noticeable change for us because we had it takes forever for us to fill one of those up with just Zai and myself, and so it's quite noticeable. So that means that those people are going to learn really quickly to live out of our garden, with this food in our garden that they don't appreciate, not aware of, haven't culturally moved to eating those types of food, and it's okay because they'll learn really, really quickly because they'll get really hungry really quick, and then we'll explain to them what it is and how to eat it, and their tummies will be full, which is quite important. They will have challenges because they'll be expecting sauces, and we don't do condiments. We very rarely do condiments. We have salt. Salt is our everyday condiment, but we hardly do any others. Oils. We have a bottle of oil lasts us a long time. I'm not sure how long. But how long a bottle of oil, Zaya? Month, 2 months?
3 months.
3 months for a bottle of oil, olive oil.
Depends on whether I make mayonnaise or.
And because we render down when we do a animal kill, we keep the fat, and we have tallow from the cow. And is it tallow from the goats?
Yeah.
Yeah, tallow from.
Yeah, I think so.
We think it's tallow from the goats. It's and we got some really nice tallow off the goat. I did this last week, and we cook with that, and so that yeah, so we've minimised those needs.
Don't forget the
Food oil.
question.
Say it again. Yeah, I've got one question. So I'm having a bit of a chat, and I have one question to attend to. Food oil. So I think I've just answered that. So that's our a bit of olive oil, which actually is more used, as I said, making a mayonnaise. Sometime, very rarely, you make a salad dressing.
Yeah.
Because we live out with our food very simply. We need our diet to be quite simple for our digestive benefits. So we're nearly out of honey. We had trouble harvesting honey because of the wet. The bees got knocked around. I've got a hive that's getting hammered by the beetle because the hive is struggling because of the wet. We've had wet again now, so that upsets the pollen and the nectar, so they have trouble getting their needs. So honey. So we just make the honey stretcher. We don't use the honey up and then go and buy some. We stretch it, and so that we going hopefully we'll have honey until. So I won't be giving any more away. I'll give some to my daughter at times and things like that. But so yeah, so we ration it, and that and obviously I need to get more beehives. So get me through those problem years. So yeah,
I think food rationing is something that is very hard to understand for a lot of people because we've been so spoiled. Right? The rationing of any sort of food is just really difficult to understand.
It is for a lot of people to understand about food rationing. It's a culture of you can always just go and get some more, but you can only just go and get some more if you got a job. And so the culture of how you function. So 2 generations ago, one person in the family was the wage earner and the other person stayed home. So there was time to make a veggie garden. And so you lived out of the veggie garden a lot more than you do now. Now, with two people having to work to pay for your mortgage and all your needs and running kids to wherever they need to go, um, then there's no one to do a garden. And so then you're relying on going to the shops. And so it's a bit of a strange direction that our our cultures have headed to. I find it very um, risky, high risk, because you turn off the tap. Um, I've been following a bit of what's going on in the Netherlands at the moment. So the government has made some serious rulings on for the agricultural sector, and there's no food on the shelf. So what the farmers are protesting, and so that they blocked off the highways and the uh, I think import and export lines have been cut, and so now the shelves got no food on. They're seriously protesting. Okay, some of the things that the policies that the government might be putting onto the farmers, I probably agree with. One is about using nitrogen synthetic fertilizers. They need to minimise the nitrogen use. I totally agree with that and go to natural. But but the point is that all of a sudden the rest of the Netherlands is going to go very hungry. Because of government policy or whatever. So it can happen really quickly. Intermittent fasting.
Yeah, I'm just replying.
Zaya's going to answer that one. And I haven't eaten yet. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now I better go to the question because we have a question. We should be excited. We have a question. And so this is from Lauren about bush regeneration. Lauren's going to visit us pretty soon to do the September PDC, which is good. We're happy about that. Now, so he's saying Lauren, she. Yeah, she. Big apologies on that. I'm not 100% aware of some certain things. I'm working for a landscaper at the moment, and he's got us doing some bush regeneration on a 100-acre property with out of control tobacco bush. Bush regeneration. So that's the objective, to regenerate into bush. Out of control tobacco bush. So that's a wild tobacco bush. For those that don't know it, or if you did try and smoke it as tobacco, all you achieve is getting a headache. It's a weed tobacco bush, a weed tobacco. The process that is being used is cutting the tobacco bush close to the ground and then painting on glyphosate. Lauren hates the way it's being done and the chemicals, but I can't afford to lose the job right now. So my question is, how would you implement a permaculture approach to managing such a large amount of weeds and restore diversity back to this area of bush? Maybe I can raise an alternative idea with my boss because the process being used now certainly doesn't feel right. Thanks, and I look forward to meeting you in September. Okay. So I've got to make some assumptions here. It would have been a field, and now it's got a lot of tobacco bush on it. If the boss just left it for a period of time, it would regenerate. Obviously, he wants to accelerate that and to get it to regenerate quickly, and all they can see is the weeds. Now, the weeds are nature's tool to turn it to forest. So the weeds are actually smothering the grass. This weed, tobacco bush, there'll be lantana in there as well, I'm pretty sure, and it'll be smothering the grass and turning it into a fungal orientation, which then allows gaps in the grass to occur by the smothering, and then the ecology is I can't find the word I want to use, but appropriate for the tree seeds to germinate. So it's actually moving it to regeneration already. Now it will possibly go through a few introduced species, which probably isn't what the boss, the landowner, the boss wants, or that's the landscaper. He's doing what the landscaper wants. So they need to choreograph the direction wants to go. So permaculturally wise, and the boss is probably not going to be interested in this because the boss just wants to come and do one job, do the job once and leave. Now, I appreciate that he's doing the cut and dab. The dab means there's less um, overspray of the chemical going everywhere. So it's just going to the plant. Not saying, not sure what they're doing with the tobacco bush once they've cut it. So ideally, you just mulch that and lay it on the ground, and that'll help smother the grass. And then you can move towards the tree system or the tree forest, whatever they're trying to achieve. And then it will move in succession. So this, what we're talking here is the early succession. So the tobacco bush is the early succession to move it towards a tree system. Nature they've obviously removed the stock from here. It would have been a grass field heading towards heading towards a tree system. And the tobacco bush is nature's tool, even though it's an immigrant that's come in. It's nature's tool to smother the grass out and move towards that. So it's heading in that direction. So they're actually going to stop a process of nature in place, but they're probably going to accelerate because then they'll plant their plants and get it away. What I would probably do, so that is the question that Lauren's asking me, what would I do is I would chop the tobacco bush down. I would mulch it or chop it up a bit and just leave it on the ground. That's fungal orientated decomposition, which is going to move it towards a tree system rather than a grass system, because I'm presuming that for it to be in this state is obviously a grass field. And
Lauren's saying,
Lauren's there, is it? I'm not watching the thread.
Yeah, he's going to throw out meadow seeds.
Meadow seed. Hang about it. Those bush regeneration meadow seeds.
So he's really, it sounds like he's
going back to
grassland.
Going back to a pasture land with the meadow seed. That's confusing me. To do that. Okay, meadow is actually forbs, which is your broadleaf, and it could have some native grasses in there, which is okay. But that's interesting they're doing that. I thought you'd be going straight to planting bush regeneration. I'm presuming to native. I'm presuming
You're saying there's natives popping up. So
the natives popping up.
Those natives, or?
Okay, so the natives are popping up. So I would be sorry, I'm getting confused. The thread's moved away from me, and how do I get that to come back down? Is there anything on that?
She's saying there's natives popping up.
Yeah. We're trying to stake the native. So if the natives are popping up, and I wouldn't even be worrying about killing the tobacco bush. See, a methodology that's happened here locally. Initially, land care thought you had to get rid of the tobacco bush, and that they're actually leaving some tobacco bush. If it's really thick, thin it down, just mulch it down, let a bit of light into the natives that want to come up, or they're planting it out. But if you leave the tobacco bush there, the wild pigeon, native pigeons, come in for the tobacco bush seed, and then they poop while they're eating, and then in their poop is seed of natives, and so it actually encourages the natives to come in more. I wouldn't be totally eradicating all the tobacco bush. I'd leave it alone more than anything, because as soon as you take the tobacco bush down, you're going to let the light in, and the grasses are going to come back, and the grass is going to smother out all the freshly germinating native seeds, your bush seeds, because you're heading that direction. I'm confused with the using the meadow. I better look at the thread. Initially, tobacco would be, but the Lauren's comment there is Mia Banks is like the tobacco is creating too much shade, so the natives can't grow. They're probably slowing it down. The tobacco's job, as I mentioned before, from what I understand, is to it's smothering out the grass. So it does that here. If I don't go with a machete up into, I'm re-establishing some pastures because I need cattle grazing area, and I'd go up the machete and I just keep knocking the tobacco bushes back a bit, and they'll phase out and it becomes grass. Okay, so I'm pushing. My intent is grasses. I'm mostly getting a grass, but I want grasses. And there's a section there that I thought, oh, God, I better get back in there and do that. And I had a look, and the tobacco bushes disappeared. So just the action of the cows being in the paddock and the grasses being promoted, the tobacco bushes disappeared. But at the section that I didn't have grazing was grass for a little bit. It wasn't good grass, and I didn't graze it for probably 2 or 3 years. The tobacco bush just covered the whole thing, so I had to go and smack the tobacco bush around. I didn't use any chemicals or anything like that. I just smashed it down, and then got the stock into there, got a fence around it, got the stock into there on a regular maintenance program. So they come in regularly, hit it hard and get out, let it restore itself, hit it hard, and then the tobacco bushes phase right out of that section. I do get the occasional ones coming up, but that's it with the bare soil and near a tree. I've got a couple of trees in there, so that there's a bit shaded, large trees, and then they'll germinate in that space. Okay, so that I'm achieving the opposite. So the tobacco bush is actually heading the right direction. Even lantana does that. Lantana can be very, very thick, but eventually something will push through. Yes, the natives will get pulled down by the lantana, but eventually something will poke through and then shade it, and then the lantana disappears and the tobacco bush disappears. So once those go through, so if you just chop down those tobacco bushes to ground level, the landowner probably won't like it because they can only see the weed, they can't see the action, or the boss or whoever's in control there, and allow those as you're staking those natives. The trouble is you've got to be careful. You stake them; they don't get strong. They rely on the support sometimes. But I'd just be knocking the tobacco bush down a bit, just machete, even not right down, leave it half standing up, and then the natives can lean on it. Just get the leaves down and off it a bit, and be, obviously swing this machete carefully, and then try and get it. Once you get the natives through, it's the game over for the tobacco bush. It'll disappear. It won't. It can't survive in the forest. It just cannot. I've got a large one. And it's dying because I had to knock back a few trees in a space, and the tobacco bush went mad. I haven't been there for ages, which is good because I didn't want it to turn to grass, so the grass never came in. The tobacco bush did that, and now there's a large tobacco bush is dead. It's done its job, and there's hardly anything of it coming up underneath because the trees have canopied over the top, the mangoes, and I'm trying to push into some. I've got a couple of ice cream bean trees in there for nitrogen, mangoes, and some jackfruit, and a few. Uh, doesn't matter. Another fruit tree in there. Right. I'll just better check the thread. Yeah. So just be careful that you're not too much grass in that meadow seed. That on that comment there about throwing it out.
It's just going to make it more bacterial again.
Yeah, if there's grass in there, it's gonna, and then it's just gonna be challenging because you actually want more natives come up really thick because we're not sure what succession in there. A comment that I like to make is grass germinates where a cow stands on it. So if there's soil and seed, grass seed, and a cow stands on it, it'll grow grass. If there's a woody weed plant in that little bit of bare soil in between the tussocks of grass and whatever, and a cow stands on it, it won't germinate. If no cow stands on it, that sitting on that bare bit of soil in between, it'll germinate, and it's a woody weed, and it's the pioneer species to turn it to a forest. I've proven that in a space up the back here in number 6. I looked on the other day, said, "Where's that?" I can't remember the name of it. I've just taken 2 of my cows to an acquaintance's place to an agistment, and it's covered in this burr plant weed. It stands about 800 mil high, and has the cows are covered in burr in one day. He's got no stock on the property right now, so it's too long a rest, and it's everywhere. This paddock up here, where I've been poking the cows in there in a small space, getting to walk all over it. And I was worried 2 years ago. I thought, I know this weed, because it's new weed to the area. It's come in about 5 years ago. This is going to take over, and there's hardly any there. So that they don't like the cows. The cows' action, the cows' interaction turns it to grass. So you're saying there's no grazing animals at the moment. Well, it'll turn to bush. Okay. My point is, no cows in there, no stock in there, no grazing animals in there. It'll turn to bush. It'll turn to forest. The grass will not survive because there's no animal in there to stop the woody weeds from germinating. Okay. There's the main point there. It's incredible. It's incredible that I like Bill Mollison's principle of biological resource. It's timing and management. So the cow is the biological resource. With proper timing and management, it makes its own grass grow better and phases trees out of a system. It phases lantana out of a system. Obviously, fully established trees won't, but they will stabilize and settle, and you'll get grasses growing in. And I've seen several examples of that. And so we have to have faith in nature working with our organisms. It's incredible. It's really quite interesting. Okay, so hopefully I've answered some of your, Lauren, some of your queries on that. I'm not sure what your boss is going to listen to. Once you've done your PDC, you'll probably have a bit more tools in your tool chest to talk to him about this, to get that awareness and understanding. I am challenged to plant out a well-established grass field, to plant it out to a timber lot in a very short period of time, because how do you stop that grass? And you need probably 7-10 years of no stock in there for it to change, and then you can possibly plant. But you'd have to come in, get one of those big mulching machines, just go and mulch everything up, mulch up the tobacco bush and the lantana, and then plant into that, and then come in and do some maintenance afterwards. That you're going to have to maintain anyhow, even if you're using chemicals. Because when you get people that are planting trees, that's their career. They go around planting someone buys a paddock and say, I want to put a timber lot on there. They are challenged to do it without chemicals. In Western Australia, you could probably, where I was, it was a very gentle slope. And if you did on contour, you could probably use a grader blade, just a small grader blade, and scalp off the top. And you've got 18 months with no grasses on there, maybe 2 years, depending on the season, and plant the trees into that, and protect them. And you could do it without chemicals. But here, with it so wet and the steep slope, you don't want to go scalping, you get so much erosion occurring. So yeah, it is a challenging thing to do. Okay, thanks guys. Thanks for those comments. So yeah, we do have to stand back and really look at how nature can function, and we're going to be learning that forever. It's good. We got to recognize what's happening. So it was an eye opener for me, as I was mentioning, that with that weed suddenly disappearing, and yet this other guy, it's just thick as thieves on his place, and it's because he's not managing it properly. So he needs to get more stock on there, and ramp it up. I know he's been too busy with other off farm work, and that here is like my comment ages ago. You go and get a job, you don't have a veggie garden, so you go to off farm work. You don't maintain your fences, and you don't maintain your stock, and then your whole system falls apart because you're not there. When you're on property, you're meant to be on the property. It won't function without you on there. Is it Masanobu Fukuoka said the best fertilizer I don't know if he uses the word fertilizer, but it's similar to that. For a garden, is the gardener's shadow. You have to be there. For it to function, you have to be there. I can tell when my garden's not 100% because I haven't been in there very much. We've been in the bit lately. It's good. Today and yesterday, I spent a bit of time in the garden because I've got a tipu in there, which I'm trialing to see if I can have a legume overstory, partly deciduous legume overstory that I can garden under. And the tipu is probably not going to be the one because it has a lot of shallow roots, and I'd let it go a little bit long. So I've pollarded it at about 2 meters, 2.2 meters high, probably. Just cut off the branches and let it grow back. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a Lucina. Lucina has a tap root, and so it doesn't have much surface root. And we can probably garden under Lucina. Lucina won't get real big. The tipu will get super big. I'm going to leave the tipu there for another 2 years or 1 or 2 years, and I'll get a Lucina up and try and pollard it at the good height and get it to get that canopy. And because we need some shade in our garden, we get too hot at certain times, so we need some shade. So and it's a biological resource. It's going to give nitrogen. A lot of nitrogen material is going to fall down and it can give nitrogen mulch. It's going to feed nitrogen through the soil in its function as a nitrogen fixer. Gives me shade and also mulch material. So I've got a big trailer load of mulch material to take down near the syntropics, and we'll be chipping that probably next week, and then that'll go into the syntropic system as our mulch in the syntropics. So many benefits from having that overstory legume. I could use fruit trees in there. We don't have very many functional fruit trees that are deciduous in this climate. We get hit by the fruit fly and things like that. So they're not real functional. So okay, what's the next functional plant? Well, I'll go to a legume and see how that goes. So I'm just trying a few of them. And so ages ago, they said we start growing our own mulch, and we're probably rapidly getting there. Actually, I need a bigger chipper to manage some of the bigger stuff. In due course, that would be handy. But we are starting to create enough wood chip mulch, even with our little chipper, to do some of the things we do. There's a couple of sections of the property that I'm realizing stop mucking around with grass as the mulch and put wood chip on there. I'm not getting back quick enough with the grass. And also I'm doing tree systems, so it shouldn't be grass, it's bacterial. I need to go fungal. So let's get into the wood chip and grow more biomass plants. Ice cream beans, fantastic for it. The tipu looks pretty good. It's a big tree, but so you'd have to be pollarding it very regularly, which is my intention. And the Lucina is not really growing fast enough for me for my ideal. And I'm still looking for more. So yeah, I've done my question. That's good, and we've had a nice little conversation. And thanks for your comments, people. There's a few people been watching. That's really good. Appreciate that. I hope I didn't miss anything there. Oh, I missed a bit at the top here. The Netherlands situation sounds severe. So farmers are not sowing in inland because it's too expensive. There's lots of theories of why this is all going on at the moment, and that's not. I don't have any control over that. I could protest as much as I like. Me on my own, not going to achieve anything. Um, I'm I'm just preparing to have no diesel. With no diesel, I don't drive out the gate. I'll have a better garden because I'll be staying home. Not a problem. Plenty of food at my place. Not enough solar working at the moment. I need to get an old diesel generator that I've got here in bits that I have to get that repaired and reserviced and get the electric part of working, so then it can back up my solar when my solar fails. So so you're going in the EU. There's going to be a lot of less ice content. So because of you're going to have gas shortages because they're not the argument with Russia is there's going to be gas shortages, and so that's man-made issue. So
Phil was saying the UK paid their farmers to quit.
Oh, okay. Where was that?
That was above.
I did.
Yeah. below what you were just reading before.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the thread, guys. That's great. I've been on a bit of a rant, so I haven't been following the thread 100%. So yeah, that's good. I'm happy to do that, and that's why you guys are there, so we can have this little chat. Lauren, thanks for your question, and looking forward to seeing you in September. And hopefully, I answered it well enough. But as I said, you'll have more tools, and we can have more conversation with this when you get here in September. That's what the permaculture course gives you, because lots of tools to do things, lots of tools to understand things, and we need to re-educate ourselves about how to observe things and then make the deduction of what we're observing. And hopefully we're getting that right. And in time we might find, no, hang about, I still had it a bit wrong, or hopefully not a lot wrong, but we're still learning a lot with that. And I guess that's why I can sit here and answer these questions, because I've been allowing myself to learn for the 17 years that we've been on this property, and obviously I was doing it beforehand. So yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for being part of it. Okay.
From now on, the Q&A will only happen the first Wednesday of every month.
We're backing off on the Q&As, which can be disappointing, but needs to be practical about that, and we'll just see how it goes from there. And yeah, so the first Wednesday of every month, we'll be doing the Q&A. So from now on, so we'll. Right, and then we just make them longer, put more information in there, and have more questions to build up.
If you have a question, just ask them.
Just send in the questions still, and then email them in, and then
There's a form on the website.
Form on the website. There you go. So form on the website with that. Okay, rightio.
Not next week. Next month, Ben.
Next month. Sorry, we're gonna. And Nick, I presume you might be in the background there. Nick doesn't get involved in the chat, and he was saying there. So you look after yourself, Nick, and we'll talk to you soon too. Rightio, people. Thank you for the chat, and that was really good. And we'll be in touch soon.